This is how we start every business and markets day officially here on Channels Television, Nigeria's news leader. This is your Business Morning, this Monday, the 18th of March. I am boosting them up. Let's get the show started. Lagos Chamber of Commerce and Industry says the new central bank's policy of FX exclusion of all forms of textiles imports will put Nigeria's fashion and trading in textile sector at risk. Over the weekend, the Chamber of Commerce says the range of fabrics produced by the Nigerian textile industry cannot support the fashion industry in terms of the quantity and quality. So the Chamber says the vibrant fashion industry should not be sacrificed on the altar of textile industry regeneration by the Nigerian government. So the Chamber advises the government to strengthen domestic industries, enhance their competitiveness, and reduce their import dependence, and as espoused in the Nigeria Industrial Revolution Plan. The Chamber of Commerce, which is the largest and the oldest Chamber of Commerce in Nigeria, also highlighted the power or electricity issue needs to be addressed while operating on high production costs. Robust incentives and concessions should be granted to those in the textiles industry. Meantime, Nigeria's housing sector is now in sharp focus on the new laws and investment, as well as penalties rolled out by the Nigerian authorities. We're also considering the lowering of bars on equity participation, which is one good news for housing loans. Government has now announced that you will contribute zero equity if you are looking for a housing loan below 5 million naira. But if you're looking for a housing loan in excess of 6 million, between 6 million and 15 naira, for 15 million naira, the new threshold for your equity participation will be 10% and no longer 20%. The Nigerian government is looking to accelerate housing in Nigeria. This will be a big story for us this week, and we'll be all over that from tomorrow, the 16th. Meantime, a very busy week on Market Street starts for Mary Uduk's Securities and Exchange Commission tomorrow, Tuesday, with the budget seminar here in Lagos. And, of course, on Thursday, the first CMC, which is the Capital Market Committee meeting, which brings all the stakeholders in Nigeria's securities market together for a one-day exhaustive meeting. And we'll be having a bit of discussion on the budget seminar and the CMC later on the program. Stick around for the SEC's Head of Economic Research, Dr. Afolabi Olowokere, is joining us live from our Abuja studios. Meantime, it's earnings season on custom space is getting a lot heavier, with big banks like Access and UBA reporting towards the end of last week. Access posts 43.85% growth in its earnings per share, while UBA earnings per share came in sharply lower than that of Access Bank at 0.6% for the full year 2018. Meantime, Access Bank and Diamond Bank have notified the stock exchange that the central bank and the SEC has approved their merger plans, but those approvals will still, quote, be subject to judicial sanction by the Federal High Court. So let's throw in the markets for a few minutes. The stock market finished last week a negative 2.5%. That's the numbers rolling in from the stock exchange, where Temple Ashaju, our business correspondent, is always on standby to talk to us. Temple is joining us on the program. I'll show you the numbers, well, just the brass tags, as it were. You have all the details later on the program. Our all-share index, of course, still below the 32,000 level. We lost 2.5%. The equity cap down, still below the 12 trillion, is still bleeding red. Now, if you go to the activity level, not significantly better than the previous week in terms of the volume, the value of transactions, and the total number of deals, about 15,000. Previous week, we did about 17,000, really. Look at the sectors. You have the banking sector, a negative 6%. And, okay, got only the oil and gas in the green territory. Let's give Temple Ashaju a few minutes to talk to us later on the program to break down those numbers. And, of course, the NESE unlisted securities market finished Friday in the negative territory, 0.32%. Fixed income was slightly a very roaring week for the guys, the fixed income, treasuries, and Naira bonds. All of that will be a bit later on the program. But first, let's get to the big story. On Thursday, the Nigeria's Presidential Enabling Business Council, or PEBEC, rolled out what you call reportgov.ng app, which allows you to talk back to the government and make comments or complain about services being rendered by MDAs. This is part of the playbook for PEBEC under Dr. Olajumoke Aina, who is the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment, and she's live to us for our first bright and early from our studios in downtown Lagos. Good morning, Dr. Olajumoke. It's good to have you on the show.
Morning.
It's good to have you here, madam. Thank you so much for spending your time. A very busy Monday, we understand. So let's start this from what the new app is all about, allowing me to talk back to your office. How will it work?
The app has been a portal for about over a year now. We've been testing it out. It's been web-based. It's being used. But we've now created an app that can be downloaded by Nigerians. The idea is to institutionalize the reforms that have been carried out by the PEBEC since 2016. Ministries, departments, and agencies have rolled out a very transparent program of the service level agreement. That means how long it takes to get an approval, how much it costs, just general transparency. Of course, we want to hear feedback about any rent-seeking opportunities, any discomfort or harassment. We also want to hear positive feedback about improvements that have been made by ministries, departments, and agencies. The idea is to have public and civil servants work with more efficiency and transparency.
Yeah, who is in charge of this platform? How does it work really? It's a feedback, but then if there are complaints or comments, how do you get back to those folks? How does it work within all the agencies or the MDAs, as it were?
So every MDA has a team working on these complaints, including their Servicom desk, but they have a customized team that has been trained over a year ago. We've recently added more agencies, so there are now just under 20 agencies on the platform. They have the protocol of how to take the addresses, how to take the complaints, right from the customer service relationship to the resolution, the process map of resolving the challenges encountered. Mr. President approved at the FEC a 72-hour timeline, so within 72 hours, most complaints should be solved. At the very least, the complainant should receive update on the status of the particular issue.
Okay, so there are 140 reforms that your council says has been initiated since 2016. So, but you said these are yet to really trickle down to MDAs. How would this be part of your playbook for 2019 to make sure that it actually trickled down?
No. That was not what I said. Yeah, it has trickled down. It has permeated very strongly across the ministries, departments, and agencies. What we've said is that private sector has not yet quite realized all the initiatives that have been implemented on their behalf. They don't yet realize all the information newly available on the websites. They don't yet realize all the procedures that have been removed, some of the costs that have been reduced, and the efficiencies that have now been built into the system. This portal, the complaints come straight to the PEBEC Secretariat. We have a team that allots, because some of these complaints cut across different ministries, departments, and agencies. So the team on ground working on the EO1 and the PEBEC .report actually direct the complaints to the relevant agency and the relevant team. So the reform leaders on the team work with the MDAs to resolve the issues, and then feedback is sent right back to the complainant. It's not a whistleblowing app. We do require the details of the complainant, and this is because we need private sector to basically have the courage to work with us to get concrete data, and this is how we believe that we can find out the pressure points, and there's no anonymity for anybody to hide. We want to have the names of the public officials in question and as much detail as possible, and that way we're able to really target the issue and resolve. Sometimes we do find out that maybe someone in the private sector did make an error in what they're applying for, how they've gone about it, or maybe used the wrong address or a wrong form. So sometimes the approvals, maybe if it's an approval, are stuck in the system. So this is another way to train our MDAs for giving prompt feedback, and also to encourage our private sector to get credible information from websites, to know the processes, and to go along the chain till we get a more efficient system for everyone.
Okay, Doctor, thank you very much. Of course, my question earlier was relating to the latter part of your comment regarding the functional websites for all MDAs to explain their services or statutory functions, as well as improved collaborations among MDAs. That's where my earlier question was about. How much more would you like to see in that regard?
Well, definitely the Executive Order 1 that was signed in May of 2017 designates, just has a particular train for MDAs to work together as one government. The onus is on public sector to share information, so we're trying to push that. We're also trying to push the idea of transparency. Every public agency is supposed to have a functioning website with service level agreements, with costs, time, people responsible, all that is supposed to be on their websites. The PEBEC works with about just over 50 agencies, but we have about over 700 MDAs in Nigeria, and the executive order applies to all of them. But the website and the app are limited to just about under 20 of the MDAs that interface most with the business community. However, there is an omnibus provision for other complaints, but it's really a portal for the business community in Nigeria, SMEs in particular.
Okay, so let's look into the new year. What will be new initiatives from your council, of course, from the Office of the Vice President and the rest of the team about ease of doing business? What targets are we setting in the short to the medium term?
Well, earlier in the year, we released our Outlook document. We're aiming to be sub-100 on the ease of doing business rankings by the end of this year. That's for 2020. We started our National Action Plan 4.0 on the 1st of March, and it ends on the 29th of April. You recall that we've had 3 earlier National Action Plans. There's 60-day accelerator programs where we come together with specific ministries, departments, and agencies and agree reforms that need to be implemented within a 60-day period, and we track that aggressively. We announced the reforms to the public, and this particular intervention is really driving home a lot of the reforms that have already been done, but knuckling them down to make sure that the agencies have the onus to inform their communities, to inform their stakeholders and their customers, and to track the volume. Because you can do all the reforms. If private sector do not know that you've done the reforms, then there's really lack of accountability. We need that pressure, demand, and supply to make sure that the system actually works. This is how we're going to have sustainability of the ease of doing business intervention. So we're really hoping that private sector will join us by using this app and also just following our work. We have a very vibrant Business Made Easy website with all the information. There's even a simulator where you can try reforms that relate to starting a business or accessing credit or paying your taxes, and really see from a practical perspective what these reforms mean to SMEs.
Okay, in the press statement your office released on Thursday, you said that when the EOI, or EO1, which is the Executive Order number 1, is fully implemented, this will be a blueprint for fundamental government reform in Nigeria. How do you think what PEBEC is doing fit into the bigger economic pie that Nigerian government wants to build, whether it's the ERGP or whether it's on infrastructure, power, and others?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thank you for that. You know, the PEBEC, the entire Ease of Doing Business initiative, is in the 3rd pillar of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. The first section of that pillar speaks to infrastructure, speaks to power, speaks to roads, rail, and broadband. And of course, for the first time, this administration institutionalized the formal plan for working on regulatory and bureaucratic bottlenecks, also legislative transformation. What this has done is you have a situation where a council has all the ministers that need to be in the room in the PEBEC council. And what that does is that there's a cohesion working together. So it fits very well into the broader picture. The Vice President is also the chair of the National Economic Council, And unanimously in 2017, the state governors adopted the PEBEC model at the state level. So you have every state has a reform champion, an ease of doing business reform champion, a council sometimes headed by the deputy governor or a very high ranking public official, a commissioner. And they've also had a situation where they're engaging their private sector. They've set action plans and goals, working on things like tax harmonization, working on things like governor's consent. In fact, the World Bank ranked Nigeria at a subnational level, and you had 32 states moving very far right in the right direction. Nigeria is now very close to the sub-Saharan average. You have a number of states like Kaduna, Enugu, Abia, Lagos, doing very well on the ease of doing business subnational ranking. We're also instituting a baseline survey. That's the PEBEC working with the NEC. It's instituting a baseline survey so that by June, as the new administration starts, there's already a blueprint. So that's what we're referring to, that because it's one economy, we don't segment. We also work very closely with the National Assembly. In fact, one of the biggest deliverables for the NAP4 is the passage and signing of the CAMA into law, the new amended CAM bill. So those are the kinds of interventions. Working with the judiciary, we have a vibrant small claims courts. Lagos State pioneered that last April, and Kano State also started theirs earlier. We have Edo State about to institute theirs, Ogun State also working on this. So you see that there's continuous harmonization in the ease of doing business interventions across the country, across government lines. We also, of course, partner very closely with the private sector. We have a number of stakeholder engagements to receive feedback constantly and adjust our reform priorities according to the needs of the business community.
Yes, you're doing a lot, Dr. Oduwole and your team. But again, if you look at the private sector, what are the key challenges you face, your agency face when dealing with the private sector based on the feedback that you're getting from them? Do you think the public, which you represent here from the government side, is working at the same pace here with the private sector when it comes to ease of doing business and all the initiatives under that umbrella?
I think the most important challenge that has been identified is one about communication. When private sector don't know the reforms, then they're not able to utilize them. So a lot has been done, but trickling down has been proving a bit more challenging, which is why we continue to engage and speak publicly. The Vice President, the Honorable Ministers, I speak pretty often as well about a number of the reforms that have been carried out, but really driving it home to the basic SME on the street, which this intervention is for. It's a systemic intervention so that you don't need to have access to power, to ministers, to governors, to presidency. It is the voice of the average Nigerian business that is being represented by this council to make sure that basic systemic changes are put in place to save the cost of doing business. That's all the running around, transportation costs, man-hour costs, regulatory costs, the time of doing business, to save just all that bureaucratic red tape and transparency. We had a lot of feedback across different agencies. You know, SMEs will speak about NAFDAC, will speak about challenges with paying taxes, will speak about challenges with accessing credit. I mean, we know all the other infrastructural challenges and a number of other policy challenges. We also have a regulatory intervention that we started last year, particularly targeted at some regulators, and we welcome a lot of feedback from the private sector in that regard, trying to streamline and make sure that global best practice is instituted in the best fit manner for the Nigerian economy.
Dr. Jumoke Oduwole, Senior Special Assistant to the President on Industry, Trade and Investment, thank you very much. We appreciate your coming on the program this morning to throw more light on what has been done by your agency. It's going to be a very busy week on Market Street for the Nigeria Securities and Exchange Commission for the first time in the new year. What are they up to? And why are they in Lagos this week? We have a bit of this conversation when we come back after the regards part 2 of your show, Your Business Morning.